Well, hello everyone, and welcome. Very happy 2021 to all of you. Hope you are all continuing to stay safe and well out there. And thank you so much for tuning in again and taking this next journey that we have ahead of us. When I first created this virtual season with the Santa Rosa Symphony, we really had no idea what to expect on pretty much any level, like where we would be, health regulation wise at this point in the season. Much less, would people be interested? Would people tune in for something like this? How would we get our artistic ideas across most clearly? And so we actually didn't even think about the second half of the season really until we had one under our belt in October. And then there was kind of this mad frenzy to say, okay, it was great. People loved it. We're bringing in thousands of people from around the world. Now it's time to expand and get our whole season in place this way, so we don't have to be, gnawing on our fingernails, worried about what's going to change each month. Let's set ourselves up to grow this virtual series to reach as many people as possible and to just have some amazing explorations. And so here we are, starting another amazing run of 5 programs, which I will give you an overview of really shortly before we dive into today's program. So once again, this is live, just sitting here in my office, and happy to see people joining us on YouTube. Feel free to say hello in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. If you have any questions, not always sure if I have time to get to them, but I definitely do read them, and we'll try to get some answers to you throughout this stream. But really excited for a great program today and a great day of sharing some music together. So, before I get started, as always, huge thank you to my good friends Jamie Haswell and Richard Grundy for sponsoring these pre-concert talks. And so, shout out to you two. Hope you're having a great day. Look forward to seeing you again soon. So this season, right, the season that we've created, January through May, I actually found quite a bit more difficult than the 3 concerts in the fall. The 3 concerts I planned in the fall, I had all this time since like May to think about when I first had the idea of how we could keep our season intact. So I had a lot of time to think about it and pretty much poured all of my best ideas into those 3 programs, like all of my dream pieces, all the things that I thought would work best in a virtual format. So all of my first best ideas just went straight into those first 3 programs. So I actually found it a little bit challenging. At first I was excited to program 5 more, but then also it became quite challenging because how do you build on that? For me, it's been really important, and I think to this whole organization and to our musicians, that we're not just surviving through this, but we're finding ways to thrive. We're finding ways to grow, and we're finding ways to artistically do new things. And so when looking at these 5 programs, I thought, okay, we did the Beethoven mini cycle in the fall. There has to be some kind of overarching theme or themes that'll connect the season together. But also, I want to do things that we can't do when we're in the concert hall together, that we wouldn't be able to do in a typical season. And a lot of these various things kind of pull together, and I came up with the idea of working with a composer. Because so much of the work we've done with the Santa Rosa Symphony since I've joined, we've done so much new music. We have I think 6 commissions now that are coming up over the next couple of years, like 6 major orchestral commissions. And the wonderful thing that I've been really grateful to have the opportunity to explore in Santa Rosa is how to present new music, to instead of just making it like, well, we want to be an orchestra that plays new music because you're supposed to, because this is the world we live in right now. You want to promote, your art form in what it currently is. But at the same time, that's not enough to just present it. And what a lot of the work we've done is to go beyond that and to say, get past the music and meet the creator, meet the composers, get to know them. And so much of what we're doing, like the first symphony project, doing these double residencies with composers coming in, so audiences not only get to know them, but get to know them over the course of time, over the course of a season, and finding new ways to connect with them and let our audience be a part of this creative process, because that's what it is. It's a process. It's not a, here's the next masterpiece, you have to like it. But instead, it's let's explore this together. What speaks to you? What are composers trying to do today? What does it make you think about? What interests you? What are the things that connect us? And that's what all of the new music we've been doing is about, and all the composers we're working with. So when I thought about these 5 programs, I decided to go big. I decided to kind of go for a Hail Mary and say, I have some connections, although I've never met her personally, to Ellen Tafe Zwilich, who's, an absolute legend in the music business. I mean, she has really helped define the American sound for like the past 40 or 50 years. Major commissions from all the major orchestras around the world. The first woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for music, first person to hold the composer's chair at Carnegie Hall. Just, all the accolades. And obviously, of course, I've known her music my whole life. I never had a chance to connect with her, but I knew I could get in touch with her, and I thought, maybe this is my chance to reach out to her and see if she would want to work with the Santa Rosa Symphony. And so part of my pitch was, maybe in a good year, we'd be able to get her out to Santa Rosa one time for a performance of one of her works. But I thought, okay, we're going to go really big here. And to get her attention, I said, we're going to do 5 pieces by her. We're going to do 1 piece by Ellen on every single one of these programs and just take this amazing journey and celebrate all this incredible music that she's given us. And it was such an incredible moment for me. I don't think I'll ever forget it when I kind of fired off this tentative email and I immediately got a call back from her. We hit it off right away, and she's just like her music in many ways. Just, so vibrant, so excited, and so generous with her time, obviously, and doing this partnership with us. She's already spent, I think, several hours on Zoom calls with me, recording interviews, talking through what we're trying to do. And this is so exciting for me now to finally start to present this collaboration that we have with her, our first ever artistic partner with the Santa Rosa Symphony. And I say artistic partner because, again, a composer in residence, first of all, you can't have a composer in residence right now. But also, it kind of portrays the composer as okay, they're going to do like their thing with their pieces, and that's it. And with Ellen, I wanted to collaborate with her throughout the season and really kind of shape a narrative with her and really have her as a partner in this journey we're going to take. And so that's what you'll see today on this pre-concert talk, which I'm really excited about. I actually have a pretty lengthy interview she and I recorded a few days ago about this entire program. So you can not only hear her thoughts on her piece, the Concerto Grosso that we're playing today, but what does she think about Bach and Webern and Mozart? And it's just, I think you'll see just how much fun she is to talk to, and so many, such an incredible depth and understanding of our music world now, but also all the history that has led up to it. Otherwise, in this season, I wanted to move on from kind of the classical era, especially after this program. Obviously, we're doing Mozart, and, moving on from Beethoven from last fall and moving into the Romantics. 19th century repertoire, Wagner, Dvorak, Brahms, composers who are most well known for these big, large scale pieces with a full orchestra on stage. And while we can't do any of that, there are incredible pieces by these composers that we don't play often enough because they don't use this big, massive orchestra that we normally want to have on stage. And so really looking forward to giving you some gems throughout this season from that era, composers that we might not expect to be on this so-called, smaller orchestra kind of programs that we're able to put on right now. So let's dig in a little bit into this program, and then honestly, I'm gonna turn you over to the conversation that Ellen and I had on this whole program. But there's basically 2 pairings on this program. The first pairing is the orchestration of Bach's Ricercar by Anton Webern. So after Bach wrote this incredible, monumental fugue, 200 years later, Anton Webern looks back on it and orchestrates it, takes a piece that was written probably for keyboard and then orchestrates it for the orchestra. And then we're going to look at Ellen's look at Handel. So again, 300 years apart between those composers. And the idea being, what happens when we hear really old music through the prism of a modern day composer. So I think there's some really interesting things in that pairing. And then our other pairing is kind of the golden age of Vienna pairing, where we're going to have not only the work of Mozart, one of my very favorite pieces, his 39th Symphony, and pairing that, though, with another symphony by Mariana Martinez, who was a contemporary of Mozart. I only discovered her music like 6 months ago. Absolutely brilliant composer who played piano duets with Mozart. Mozart actually wrote piano duets for them to play together. That's how highly he regarded her. She studied with Haydn, and obviously because of the limitations put on women at the time, she wasn't able to have this massive career, but she did write a lot of incredible works, only left us with one orchestral piece, which is what we'll be playing today, the Sinfonia. So we have a great journey through these pieces today and through the rest of this season. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to turn it over to this conversation I had with Ellen. I'll be back right at the very end to check in with you guys, maybe answer some questions and let you know what's on the docket next for today. So thanks, everyone, and please enjoy. Well, Ellen, this is so much fun that before we get into this concert stream, we get to just chat about this program as a whole. Just, as a performer, as a composer, you've lived with this music just as much, well, actually more than I have, and just love to just talk about, all the music we've got on this program. Such a wonderful variety.
Yes.
And just excited to kind of bring it all together. So, the concept, I think at first, when I knew we were going to put your Concerto Grosso to be on this first program, I was thinking, okay, so this is Ellen taking a look back at the Baroque era. What's another composer who did that? And of course, the Bach Lecce-Chong is such a classic example, the Weber orchestration. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I had to study it so much in school. First, I had to learn the original Bach as part of score reading and as part
really?
of fugues. Yes. And then in orchestration class, when you have to learn how to write for the orchestra, I had to study and analyze the Weber. And so, what is your first reaction when you hear about this piece? What are your thoughts on it?
Alban Berg and Schoenberg and Weber were considered the second Viennese school after, the Beethoven and so on. And they had an enormous impact on 20th century music. And Schoenberg came up with a particular way of writing called serialism or 12-tone music or something like that. And it was taken up by people that came afterward as being something you had to do. You were supposed to do this. There were people that would go around saying things like, we've got to burn the past. And the thing that's so interesting to me about that is that here are three people that were the leaders of a whole new way of writing and looking at things, who, instead of burning the past, they embraced it. And I think that's really kind of a very nice thing. And I never felt an obligation to burn the past or to never write octaves or things like that. I always thought that was really dumb, is probably the wrong word, but I just wanted to write music. And it's very interesting when you look historically, for instance, looking back at Bach. Bach is, I guess you would say now, everybody thinks he's just about the best composer ever. When he was alive, he was not as popular as his sons, who were doing things more in the new thing that was coming up with instrumental music in people's houses and in small ensembles and so on. So Bach was not taken terribly seriously in his lifetime. I mean, he was known as a wonderful organist and a great church musician and so on, but it was the sons who kind of took the spotlight. And particularly after Mendelssohn in the 19th century, when he really kind of took up the case for J.S. Bach, all of a sudden everybody is onto the whole idea that maybe there's something here. And I'm not saying that he didn't have any kind of a following, but that in the terms that people were talking about and regarding, the sons of Bach were the new voices to be heard. Now it's turned around the other way. And I find that interesting, and that nobody's going to be able to say that the 20th century is the century of Schoenberg. And the interesting thing is that Schoenberg wouldn't have said that. Because you see, all of the three of these guys all did something with Bach. And you don't write something musical without loving what you're working on. So I found that kind of an interesting thing, that I wrote this Concerto Grosso. There was still the stuff floating around that I couldn't do what I wanted to do, that I couldn't have tonality and tonics and, things like that. And the past had to go away altogether. It's just fascinating to me. And I think that's the legitimate approach. And it happened with the Second Viennese School. And it certainly happened with a lot of people like me in the later part of the 20th century.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my take on it. So what I'm saying to the audience, you don't wait for somebody to tell you this is important music and this is not. So you just open your own ears and your own heart and listen, see what you think. And maybe you even change your mind the second time you hear something.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say this about the Second Viennese School, because I think there is there in some ways the movement that was inspired by the Second Viennese School tended to be the kind of burn the past and let's get really mathematical, and music became less about communicating emotion or thoughts or what it is to be human. It became so serialized to the point that for me there's an era or at least a style of music that even for myself I can't sit there and try to justify to someone that they have to sit there and enjoy this kind of music. But interestingly enough, it unfortunately that gets that label of kind of like not enjoyable to listen to gets put on the Second Viennese School, whereas those composers, they were deeply connected, as you just shown.
Oh, I mean, think of the Baroque Violin Concerto, which also has a big reference to Bach.
Absolutely, and I think it's it's actually interesting to see. I almost think there was the movement that came right after them that kind of took what they did to extreme levels. And then I think there was a series of wonderful composers like yourself that have really kind of brought it back and taken what the 20th century has given us in kind of its breadth and found a way to communicate that in a modern way, but it still communicates to people. It draws people in. It's nice to see we've come full circle.
I maybe it's my personality or something. When somebody tells me I can't write octaves, I sit down and write a few.
Yeah, wonderful.
It's like I don't know. People do strange things and try to justify what they're doing, and it's very interesting. What you said that Bach and Webern and Berg, they had no problem with the past. They were maybe looking for a new course, so to speak, but they didn't, like abandon the past. Or particularly, they didn't burn it.
And I think what people will hear in the pairing of these two pieces, even though one is the notes that Bach wrote are not changed in the Webern, but still in these presentations, because you also quote the Handel note for note at times. I think what people will realize though, as these two things come together, is how innovative and modern those composers were, Bach and Handel. They were doing things that no one else was doing in their time, trailblazers. And we hear it with new ears in the way that it is presented by you and Webern. And so I think it's a really wonderful pairing and for people to really be able to, like you said, just open up, listen to it, take it in. There's so much color there.
Oh, absolutely. And don't listen to people that try to tell you what to think or do, or what to believe or what in music and what you're supposed to like and what you're supposed to not like. And I mean, come on, it's too universal for that. It really is. I mean, it's all about our humanity. And I think anybody that closes a door here or there is missing something.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's turn to the other pairing of pieces from the golden age of Vienna. One composer who is, one of the most famous composers of all time, and another composer who I only got to know about 6 months ago, Mariana Martinez. Who was a contemporary of Mozart and as famous as Mozart in their day.
Yeah, yeah,
Mozart wrote piano duets for them to play together.
yeah,
She
yeah.
studied with Haydn. I mean, it's crazy. Her career is just full of all the all-stars of her day. And unfortunately, she only wrote one pure orchestral work, which is what we'll be
Yeah, yeah.
playing.
Well,
But
she
at the
was
same
a
time,
female.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, had you encountered her work before?
No, no, I haven't. I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah.
And but these cultural things that people think are so important, um, and this composer is not recognized in his or her time, and this one is over recognized, and this one is whatever. It's very interesting, and um, when you think of so many of the, I mean, like your other composer on the Mozart, Nannerl was his sister was extremely talented
Yeah.
and didn't really have a place to go, whereas Leopold Mozart, who was a wonderful teacher and writer and violinist and so on, he really charted the path for Mozart, and I mean Wolfgang. I don't mean Nannerl. I mean
Yeah.
Wolfgang. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating thing to see these two composers together, and one of the things I think the audience can really look forward to in the Martinez is perhaps in some ways because she wasn't given all the opportunities that she should have been, but she was so brilliant. I think she was released from some of the structures of the musical structures of the day,
Mm-hmm.
because this piece has some shocking turns in it, like some
Oh
harmonies
yeah.
and some ways that she uses the orchestra that are so unique. And
Yeah.
often she's described as having a lot more Italian influence. And so it's almost like you hear the qualities of Mozart in the classical era, but there's this brilliant in-your-face virtuosity of like Scarlatti, of
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
these Baroque Italian composers where the music just flows and flows, and the violins are just flying up and down their instruments, and there is something really showy in a very direct way, not in a
Yeah.
very, not in a sort of intellectual, balanced way, but just sort of in a here's what the orchestra can do. So I think people really enjoy some of these beautiful surprises all
Yeah. Yeah.
throughout this short symphony.
And I think of Mozart. I sometimes say, when I was learning how to tie my shoes, Mozart was writing wonderful pieces, and he started very young. And as I said, his father was probably the best mentor you could have found in the era. Um, but it's so delightfully surprising that these three last symphonies, the 39, 40, and 41, um, they are just so far from where he started. It's like he just blossomed and blossomed and blossomed. And he died very young. He died shortly after writing these three symphonies. And it just was amazing when you think about what he accomplished and how he grew over his relatively short life. And I mean, he could write opera, he could write symphonies. And, it's really not everybody can do both of those. It's not like walking and chewing gum. No, it isn't. It's a question of what you bring to the table, And he was wonderful in just about everything he did.
Yeah, I think when I think of these three symphonies, there's kind of two things that just are so opposed. The idea that he is at the height of his powers in these three symphonies. I mean, the
Yeah. Oh
genius, the
yeah.
creativity, and yet on a professional and personal level, he's at the lowest point in his life. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not even commissioned to write these three symphonies. He writes them to try to desperately get a job. He's begging people to
Yeah.
perform
I
them.
know.
No one
Yeah,
will even
I
play
know.
these symphonies. How crazy is this? I mean, it just,
Well,
oh,
I tell you, I had written for orchestra since I was in college, and even I've written for band when I was in high school, and my first symphony came out of uh, 2 things. One, I had a Guggenheim Fellowship, 2, I was at the McDowell Colony, and I had a fellowship for that too. And I'm sitting there the first day I'm there, and I said, now is the time to do something really stupid. So I started a piece for fairly large orchestra, having no possibility of a performance, much less of commission. And it was amazing to me. I couldn't stop, and I had to put it aside because I did have a commission for a chamber work. And when I got a call from the American Composers Orchestra, like 2 months before their concert, and the commission composer hadn't produced the piece, and they said, "Can you give us something this bad?" I said, "You bet." And I just, really, really just sat down and did nothing else and those days I had to copy the parts too, which was a nightmare. But it's interesting. Sometimes I feel very inspired by a commission, basically. It's like somebody is betting on you, counting on you to do something. But my first symphony was just done because I really want to do it,
What an incredible, I had no idea the background on that piece. My goodness.
Yeah, it's a well, I don't talk about it very much, but
no, but it's, this is what's so wonderful is to, it's not that much has changed about composition over the years. It's still this process of internalizing and growing and creativity. And it never stops.
But apropos, the stylistic things, I want to feel the orchestras in front of me when I'm writing, whatever the performers are. I want them right like you and I are right now. And so I was writing on the full score and pasting things on the wall. It's sort of help. Anything you can do to innovate yourself, is wonderful. So I had a friend, also a composer, came in and he walked along the wall and he said, I like it, but you'll never get away with this. And I did get away with it. I actually won the Pulitzer Prize for it. But it was interesting that people were still talking like that, and all of these isms you have to do and things you can't. I mean, I just can't live with it. And I think I might have mentioned this before with you, that there was a panel a number of years ago in New York, and the subject was uptown music and downtown music. I think I mentioned this to you.
Maybe so. Okay. No.
And uptown was like Columbia, Princeton, Milton Babbitt kind of thing. And downtown was like John Cage and more experimental music and so on. And people are talking about this and that and what you could do with this, what you couldn't do with that. And John Cage spoke up and he said, well, I don't want to talk about uptown or downtown. I will only be discussed by my zip code. And that to me was just perfect because, it's not what you should be thinking about. Is this okay? Is this not okay? It's like, I don't get it. Yeah. But then I was always a performer. And maybe that's something that makes a difference, And I like different kinds of music. I used to play jazz trumpet. I mean, the only thing I played professionally was violin, but, I love all kinds of music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'll say this for any young composers that are looking out there. I get sent scores, dozens of scores every year from various composers who I have no idea who they are. And I found some wonderful ones through there. But I feel like one of the most telling things about knowing about a composer, even before I've met them, about whether I'll want to work with them is, does their music sound different? Like, do different pieces sound different? If I find that 3 things from a composer all kind of sound the same, they have they may have a voice, but I'm not interested in that then. I want someone who is exploring everything that's out there.
Yeah. And somehow or other, if you're doing it to be true to yourself, not to follow, commands or norms and things like that, stylistic things, you do have a voice, and you can be influenced by this and influenced by that. I mean, it's just it's quite fascinating. And,
Well, and that's, that's what everyone has to look forward to with what you and I are doing over these 5 concerts. I mean, talk about, yes, like everything that we're talking about in your personality is so imbued in all of these works. At the same time, everything from, this concerto grosso to like, the new cello concerto to like Peanuts Gallery, we've got, we have you taking inspiration from so many different places, and
Yeah.
it's you, but at the same time it's fresh and it's brilliant to all of us, because we have no idea when when we're about to hear a piece by Ellen. You can't say, oh, it's going to be this trick, she's going to do this sort of thing. Like, it's instead it's just it's a wonderful exploration, and
Well,
all
that's
of the inspiration that you bring.
my aim, is that every piece is a voyage, and I don't know exactly where it's going, and I don't want a GPS to tell me turn right here and left there.
Sounds great.
But
Sounds great. Well,
I look forward to this concert. It should be very, very, very nice. I'm
I
very
think
much
it's
fun.
same here, Ellen. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about all of the pieces with me. I think we're gonna have to do this again. I think this is an idea that just came to me, having a chat about the whole concert with you. But I love
Well,
talking to you
I'm
about this.
happy to, because I've had a lot of experience with audiences, and I really think that we can give them a big hand in figuring out something, and feeling free about it. That just, you love it or you hate it, or it's something in the middle. I remember I didn't really get Brahms until I was about 18. And I'd had like, an unhappy relationship or something, and my command of music had changed. And all of a sudden, oh my God, what he wrote.
Well, hey, listen, thanks to everyone for joining us for this free concert talk. Thank you so much, Ellen, for joining me, and looking forward so much to presenting your Concerto Grosso today and the wonderful journey we have ahead of us.
Thank you, sir. Toi, toi, toi.
Well, there you go, everyone. And I got a little guest here with me who does not like being on Zoom. She's not used to having to be on camera. But this is Hibiki, everybody, the newest member of our household here in Santa Rosa. Hi. You going to be nice? You going to say hi to everybody? Well, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this pre-concert talk. And so directions from here. This will eventually end. I'm going to end this live stream, and you'll catch the concert on a different video at 3 p.m., the premiere for our concert. And if you want to even stay afterwards, you can go back to the Santa Rosa Symphony YouTube channel and even catch a post-concert Q&A with a couple of musicians and I. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today. You still have like a half an hour to tell all your friends and everyone that you know to come check out our concert at 3 o'clock. And we'll look forward to seeing you then from stage. All right. Bye, everyone.